declared war. Jefferson replied by dispatching an armada of American ships. The very sight of the frigate Constitution convinced the Emperor of Tangiers to release all American sailors in his custody and renounce his demand for tribute. In return, Commodore Edward Preble returned to him the 2 Barbary merchant ships he'd already captured. The Bashaw of Tripoli wasn't so impressed, especially when his sailors captured the USS Philadelphia and renamed her Gift of Allah. Having taken one of America's capital ships, the Bashaw felt emboldened by his success and rebuffed any attempt at negotiation, save the immediate payment of his tribute. There was little concern on the Americans' part that the Barbary pirates would be able to sail the square-rigged ship and use her as a Corsair, but the thought of a foreign flag hanging from her jackstaff was enough to gall even the most novice seaman. For 5 days after the Americans espied the Philadelphia, protected by the 150 guns of Tripoli's inner harbor, the skies and seas raged in a battle as fierce as any aboard the 2 warships had seen. Despite the best efforts of their captains, the squadron became separated and drifted far to the east. As bad as it was aboard the Siren, First Officer Lafayette couldn't imagine what the crew of the Intrepid faced during the tempest. Not only was the ketch much smaller than his ship, coming in at a mere 64 tons, but until the previous Christmas the Intrepid had been a slave ship called Mastico. She'd been captured by the Constitution, and when her holds were inspected, the Americans discovered 42 black Africans chained below. They were to be a gift of tribute to the Sultan in Istanbul from Tripoli's Bashaw. No amount of lie could mask the stench of the human misery. The storm finally abated on February 12th, but it wasn't until the 15th that the 2 ships rendezvoused at sea and made their way back to Tripoli. That night, Captain Stephen Decatur, the squadron commander, convened a war council aboard the plucky little Intrepid. Henry Lafayette, along with 8 heavily armed seamen, rowed over to join him. "So you get to wait out the storm in comfort and now come aboard looking for glory, huh?" Decatur teased, reaching out to give Lafayette a hand over the low gunwale. He was a handsome, broad-shouldered man with thick dark hair and captivating brown eyes, who wore the mantle of command easily. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, sir," Lafayette replied. Though the 2 men shared the same rank, were the same age, and had been friends since their midshipman days, Lafayette deferred to Decatur as the squadron commander and captain of the Intrepid. Henry was as tall as Decatur but had the slender build of a master fencer. His eyes were so dark they appeared black, and in the native garb he had donned as a disguise, he cut as dashing a figure as the legendary pirate they hoped to one day face, Suleiman Aljama. Born in Quebec, Lafayette had crossed into Vermont as soon as he turned 16. He wanted to be part of America's experiment in democracy. He already spoke passable English, so he anglicized his first name from Henri and became an American citizen. He joined the Navy after a decade working the timber schooners of Lake Champlain. There were 80 men crammed onto the 60-foot ketch, though only a few wore disguises. The rest were to hide behind her gunwale or wait in the hold when the Intrepid sailed past the stone breakwater and into Tripoli's principal anchorage. "Henry, I'd like you to meet Salvador Catalano. He's going to be our pilot once we near the harbor." Catalano was thick-set and swarthy, with a massive bush of a beard that spread across his chest. His head was covered with a filthy linen turban, and in his belt was stuck a wickedly curved knife with a red semi-precious stone set into its pommel. "I assume he didn't volunteer," Lafayette whispered to Decatur as he moved to shake the pilot's hand. "Cost us a king's ransom, he did," Decatur retorted. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Catalano," Henry said, grasping the Maltese's greasy palm. "And on behalf of the crew of the USS Siren, I want to thank you for your brave service." Catalano threw a wide, gap-toothed grin. "The Bashaw's Corsairs have raided my ships enough times that I thought this is fitting revenge." "Good to have you with us," Lafayette replied absently. His attention was already on his new temporary home. The Intrepid's 2 masts stood tall, but several of her stays sagged, and the sails